A very delightful morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. It's Friday, of course, the very first day in the month of December. Happy New Month to you and welcome to this amazing day. Of course, we're beaming live from the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, the beautiful city called Uyo. My name is Francis Oyimaided, and as always, we'll be here to talk Nigeria and things happening from all around the world. We'll always encourage you to be part of our growing online community. Of course, join the conversations as well in real time. You can find all the details on our social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtvlive.ng. Of course, the phone numbers are on your screen. You can send us direct message. You can call, and just to be part of the issues that will be brought to you this morning. But of course, as far as Nigeria is concerned, a lot of things are happening. And today, we're not forgetting, is World AIDS Day, a day set aside to give voice and create awareness and just look into some of the issues that are still keeping the respective states of the Federation and Nigeria at large when it comes to the burden of the disease. Of course, we recall back in those days when AIDS first surfaced, it was literally like once you have HIV and AIDS, it's a death sentence. You were not going to be able to live a normal life. You were not going to be able to marry, reproduce, and all of those concerns. It literally looked like a death sentence, and people died a lot more out of depression, out of the stigma, out of fear, than people actually died out of the cause of the sickness. But of course, over the years, a lot of advocacy, a lot of awareness, a lot of drugs and innovation, scientifically motivated, has led to a lot of changes. And of course, reorientation has also helped in a lot of ways. And then the availability of drugs to help HIV and AIDS patients to cope and be able to still live out their normal life has contributed significantly to the changes that has been experienced in the narrative. Good morning, Uya. Happy New Month.
Good morning, Francis. It's a very beautiful Friday morning, and it's a good note to start in a brand new month. We're grateful for life. More like we've come to the end of 2023.
You still have a lot more days, though, before
we have
you get
literally
to that
come
point.
to the end of 2023, my brother. We have literally 30 days to go, and you know how quickly 30 days, comes and goes. But we are here for it. We are grateful for all of what the experiences of 2023 has been. As a nation, it's been quite a journey, transiting from one administration to another. People would want to analyze, of course, would look at how biting the beginning of this administration has been. But I've seen that experts have said that in the next 15 months, between now and the next 15 months, that everything is going to level up. We do hope that Nigerians will be able to hold it together until we get to 15 months. And when we get to the 15 months benchmark being forecasted by experts, we hope we come into a serious kind of abundance and stability as a nation. But it's a good day to rise and shine. It's a good day to be really, really thankful. A lot has happened individually and as a nation. And Thanksgiving is one way to push forward. And we are grateful for it. But let's look at a quick rundown of the conversations that we have on Rise and Shine this morning. Quite a bumper, like Francis would usually call it. We have quite a number of things we are looking at. Going to prison decongestion this morning. Federal government is paying 585 million naira in fines. Begins nationwide prisoners release. Really good news also for some prisoners, Francis, this December. We also see here COP28, where our president is in Abu Dhabi. The session opens with historic launch of loss and damage fund. Of course, climate change is the conversation on the table. We also have here conversations around minimum wage that we tried to start yesterday. Of course, as of this morning, we see that the federal government is voting 24 trillion naira for salaries come 2024 April as a new wage augmentation. The question we're asking yesterday is how much will the public sector wage increase actually be? We hope to be able to bring Marvel Essien up this morning to be able to answer that as quickly as possible. Of course, we're still looking at how the Japa syndrome is affecting Nigeria as a country, as the federal government urges universities to produce more doctors. Of course, well, We also see here Shaibu free to contest a Edo governor, says Obaseki. That race going on between the governor and the deputy. These and more are some of the conversations we'll be having on Rise and Shine this morning. Of course, we're going to be paying particular attention to gender-based violence, and also we'll be paying particular attention to HIV and AIDS, being that today is the World AIDS Day. This is a lot to talk about. We'd like for you to take advantage of our social media platforms to engage us. Send us your concerns, send us your contributions, like, share, comment. Let's get more people to hear and know about Rise and Shine and Spectrum Television. We'll head on straight now to our flash news.
Rise and Shine. Rise and Shine.
Of course, we're starting off with the very first flash news this morning, where the federal government has paid over 585 million naira fine and is scheduled to begin nationwide release of prisoners. So, yeah, recall when this conversation kick-started and the Minister for Interior, sought to raise funds to help pay for the fines of people who are in prison because of one fine or one money that they couldn't, afford on their own to pay, thus leading them to be, remanded in prison custody. It said, yes, first and foremost, when you look at the fact that most of the nation's correctional facilities are overpopulated, I mean, literally a prison, correctional facility that was meant to accommodate about 5,000 or 500,000 people has accommodated over to 800,000 people and more, and still counting. So you're looking at the fact that apart from the overpopulation of the prison, you're also looking at the pressure on the prison facilities. You're looking at the fact that, a lot of wear and tear will happen across the facilities. You're also looking at the fact that the living conditions of the prisoners will not be anything that will be in compliance with international best practices. But of course, this news was received on different sides by Nigerians, and still re-echo the concerns. Yes, the federal government is telling Nigerians they are going to commence release of the prisoners, but what steps has been put in place to ensure that these prisoners that will be released are giving proper orientation, they're giving proper treatment before being let back into the society? Remember, these are persons who have been away for the longest time. They've been away from the society. They've been away from daily conversations with other members of the society. They've been away from their family members. Literally, they have been away for the longest time. So the chances of them being aware and being in tune with what is happening is definitely slim. So there is some level of need for orientation. There is a need for the government to have taken out time to prepare the minds of these individuals before sending them back into the society. And as long as that has not been done, remember just recently when South Africa, announced the planned release of the footballer Pistorius. They said that there was move already on ground. His release is set for January 2024. But of course, in preparation for that, the Ethics and Attitudinal Council, the other relevant, counseling agencies had commenced, the process of preparing his mind on how to deal with people in the outside world as he was going up. I mean, this is somebody who has spent 13 years. Now, if that is somebody who has spent 13 years, that can be likened to anybody who has spent some time behind prison, which is a completely different world from the reality of the world that each and every one of us lives in. So, in as much as most Nigerians are celebrating the fact that, okay, we are going to have people who have been in prison unjustly, possibly because of the fines they couldn't pay, being released by the move of the federal government. But then, what would this mean in the event that these people are not properly trained, they're not properly reorientated before being sent back to the community? It might spell out a different spate of criminal activities.
Well, there's a lot to look at here. We see that the Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, had said that there is a target to free 4,000 inmates. Of course, these people are languishing in detention facilities across the nation due to an inability to be able to pay fines for the different offenses that they have committed. More like these persons that the federal government is looking to pay 500 million naira to get released. They're not necessarily people that might have committed capital crimes. They're just people who are there in these facilities and have not been able to put together monies to pay the fine and get released. And sometimes you find out that within these correctional facilities, people do upwards of 10 years for these kinds of issues. And so when, you know, the Minister of Interior came on board, he looked into some of those modalities. First of all, the capacity of each correctional facility, how much are they supposed to carry? How much extra number do they have now, you know, burdening those facilities? And out of this number, how many people are really not supposed to be here, but are here for one reason or the other? And this is what, you know, Olubumitin Jojo is looking into. And now he had also stated at, you know, when he took over office, it is the responsibility, you know, he's going to put on the federal government to see that this 585 million naira is actually paid, and then these persons are released back to the society. So it's just, you know, some form of an incentive put back into the system so that we see that the correctional facility is regularized and activities are regularized. But the biggest question, just like Francis has posed this morning, we need to go through the psychological analysis that reintegrating these people back to the society is going to take. We do hope that the Ministry of Interior also considers this aspect and not just pays this lump sum of money, sends them back into the communities, and then, you know, they come back with some more trouble, Francis. So we do hope that this is, you know, in the best interest of you know, everyone at large. But we saw that over the course of the week, 150 inmates were actually released from a correctional facility in Kano State, and out of this 150 makes it out of the 4,000 plus people that you know, the correctional facility is supposed to release in around the nation at this time. Now, it is the move of the federal government to actually decongest custodial centers and make them humane for proper reformation and rehabilitation of offenders to take place. I know it was, I think, a year or two ago where we saw that the name, it changed from Nigerian Prison Service to Nigerian Correctional, you know, Service, where they are looking at it. We're not just bringing criminals, we're not bringing offenders of the law, people who break the law to this place. We are hoping to be able to correct, you know, their mindsets around all of these issues and maybe be able to reintegrate them back into the society. So that brings psychology, that brings medicine, that brings, you know, a lot of things to it to make sure it brings therapy into the question. Now, I don't know how many of us have had the luxury or taken out the time to go to prison yards and just, you know, check out how these people live. It was Francis who was mentioning something. In the Nigerian correctional facility system, it doesn't look like the welfare of the prisoners is, you know, the concern of the correctional system or the federal government, because those people are there, you know, most times even looking like they are literally trying to get by for themselves. Their accommodation plan is, at the end of the day, just as is suggested by this move by Olubumitin Jojo, the correctional facility doesn't correct them. It rather would even leave you, plus what, you know, an enclosed space would do, it leaves you more traumatized. And some of these reviews will actually really do help in a very long run. Thankfully, thanks for those that will be experiencing and receiving this release. 4,068 people is the target nationwide. We do hope that when you receive this, they receive this benevolence from the federal government, they would come back and try to add their best quota to the development of society.
Well, it's going to be a very serious conversation, and it might spiral out in the opposite direction and against the interests of Nigeria. Just going through the public announcement made by the minister, I am yet to see anywhere where the minister have said time has been spent to train, you know, or reorientate the minds of these prisoners before they're being sent. The only thing he's calling for is for communities to return the returning inmates with open arms, and of course refrain from stigmatizing them, as it could drive them back to committing crimes which would further endanger the society. Now, one thing I would agree with him is that it's definitely going to endanger the society. So there would have been a need for thorough groundwork to prepare the minds of the prisoners on how to cope, because there is literally no way you're going to send somebody who has been in prison back to the community. That's, you know, you wouldn't find that that element of stigmatization. People definitely are going to be afraid of that person. For instance, people are going to be extra careful of that person. It's like you see in the movies that once somebody, you know, even the person never knew you for the first time, but going through your CV and seeing you've been an ex-con, definitely the way the person is going to look at you changes immediately. Except for a few people who are going to be able to look past and then converse with you, knowing that there is a genuine chance for somebody who has gone to prison to actually be remorseful, or maybe change from his or her bad ways and then turn a new leaf. But outside of that, the generality of the people, the perception would be that, oh, this person has been to prison, definitely is a completely different world. He probably would have, may have gone there as somebody who was not a criminal, but must have picked up one or two things in the prison cell that makes him more of a hardened criminal and more of a danger to the society. So beyond the release, beyond paying the money, beyond giving them 10,000 naira or transport allowance to get themselves back to their respective communities and villages, one would have expected that the federal government, the Minister Tunji Ojo, would have taken that deliberate move to orientate the minds of those people. Because yeah, if we have not done that, then the release of these thousands of former inmates into the society is a timing bomb that will explode anytime soon. So it is time, in as much as we have not, the release has commenced in I think Kano State so far. It has not spread out to others. It is very important that Tunji Ojo understands the dangers of releasing people whose minds are still twisted in the way of crime. Releasing this group of people to communities that will definitely, no matter how much you talk about it, look at them as ex-cons. So it is first the responsibility of the federal government to orientate the minds of the prisoners to be able to deal with some of these rejections that definitely will come. Also, orientate the minds of Nigerians. It should be some level of public awareness campaign to let Nigerians know that, okay, we have taken this move in good faith. We are looking at people who were in prison because they could not pay fine ranging from 150, 200, up until 1 million naira. We are settling that so that we can get them back into the community. They can get back to live their normal life. And as a result of that, we are encouraging Nigerians to not treat them, stigmatize them, to be able to try and relate with them as often as and as possible as it can be under normal circumstances. That is a serious campaign, awareness that should have happened even before this happened. But we do watch and see and hope that in the interest of Nigerians, we'll be able to get past this. But of course, they say every good thing comes with its level of good, and also we'll be looking at the disadvantages of that. But we do hope that the advantage would far outweigh the disadvantages. But of course, moving on to our next story, we know that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu jetted out of the country for COP28, of course, a meeting that focuses on looking into some of the major issues on climate change and other serious conversations. We see that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as of yesterday, met with King Charles III. And of course, the first conversation was about strengthening the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and, of course, Britain. And then, of course, on the sideline of that, we see that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is also going to talk about the need for the developed countries of the world to champion, the release of funds that were meant for climate change and issues related to climate change. Now, literally, at this point in time, conversations has always been about the fact that the climate is no longer just about, heating up. The ozone layer is not heating up. Things are not just about heating. It's around the boiling point now. And there's need for a lot more aggressive reactions, a lot more aggressive, deliberate move by the countries of the world to ensure that actions that will help, reduce the harm that is being done to nature is drastically dealt with. Of course, on the sidelines of this conversation, one of the major focus from the developing countries is to ensure that the advanced countries and developed countries are able to support developing countries to transit to cleaner energy, which will also help in, lessening the tension, lessening the pressure and the harm that is being done to Mother Earth. But of course, we've had different COPs happening over the years. And it seems like literally when these situations and this time comes up, the conversations are held, you move away from the conversation, and it literally looks like everybody returns to, the status quo before the conversation happened.
It's a strong conversation that we're having. Of course, we see that these talks are going on in Dubai at the moment, and it's looking at a really strong and serious time for the whole planet at this time, with emissions still rising and the United Nations declaring 2023 on track to become the hottest year in human history. Remember that if we even go back to South Africa, in the last 1 week, they have experienced an upsurge in heat wave, unprecedented, nothing like it has ever been before. This is happening in different parts of the world. In the last couple of years, we have seen how widely Florida was hit, by wildfires, just cutting forest and all of those things. These are resultant effects of the climate boiling, because Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is in charge of the United Nations, had actually said that it's not a matter of the ozone layer being heated up anymore. The earth is actually at a boiling point. Now, what will it take different nations of the world, especially these advanced ones that come into the lesser advanced nations, to engage in oil and gas, different activities where we see the emission of gas and other electrolytes into the atmosphere, which is affecting the quality of the climate over us at this time. We see things failing, even health is failing, because the atmosphere, the air we breathe, is no longer healthy. Now, on the sidelines, the conversation here is, how can we move forward with regards to climate change globally? What are we willing to do as different nations of the world? What is Nigeria willing to do? What is Asia willing to do? What is the United States willing to do? These are some of the things that they're looking at. Of course, the delivered history, of course, where we saw at the COP28 summit being held in Abu Dhabi, President Sultan Al Jaber, of course, looked into the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund, which has been a long sought initiative by climate vulnerable nations to provide an early win during this COP28. Now, they're looking at sharp divisions over the phasing out of fossil fuels where immediately apparent. Now, there are some nations of the world where it has come imperative that they must navigate away from fossil fuel and go to greener energies, because the pressure of these climate change is stronger in some of these nations. So together, all of the nations that are currently at the COP28, they have set up an establishment fund for loss and damage with regards to climate change. We do hope that beyond just setting aside, because this looks like a buffer fund, when it happens, we bring you fund and help you. But we need to have the conversations around strategically doing something around climate change itself. I remember in the last administration, the former Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, was the one who usually would preside over this meeting on behalf of Nigeria. And they've continued to have this conversation, but we need to see work being done. In recent times, earlier on this week, we heard when the Nigerian government is complaining of foreign nationals that are in the oil and gas sector in the south, the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. They're saying these people are coming and doing business in our lands, but they're not careful about the communities. These are some of the things that happen. Even just backyard here in Akwa Ibom State, in the region, we just oftentimes, if you go to that Ibona Beach, Francis, you will just see when gas is being flared. These things are happening every now and then, and it is costing us. Now, when we say let's move from fossil fuels to greener energy, this gas that is being emitted can be converted to several forms of energy that will come back and be beneficial for mankind. So why don't we take the time to attend to the conversion instead of allowing it to become problematic? It's a waste that can be converted into good use. Why not leverage on these globally instead of continuing to it against the ozone layer eventually. I know that a lot of countries are making attempts to find out how healthy other planets are, but we don't really think there is any other planet that will be as healthy as the Earth because it was pre-planned. So if we destroy this one, I don't think Mars will be willing to welcome all of us in the world at the same time, Francis.
Well, of course, one thing we have to appreciate is the fact that, the laws and gains funds has been instituted this time around. We've seen the likes of UAE donating $100 million US. We've seen the likes of the European Union giving over 246 million US dollars, and others have also made donations to ensure the fund is well set up. But of course, there are also conversations around developing countries transiting from the energy sources to cleaner energy, which will help increase the health of the planet. In the event that this is holistically followed through the different conversations that's going to happen over the period of days, that over 200 countries, world leaders have converged for these conversations, would be definitely hope that this is, from this very start of the day, that is a good win for developing countries, a good win for the planet, is a good thing for moving away from actions and activities that will further endanger Mother Nature, and of course, by extension, all of us as humans. It's definitely a step taken in the right direction, and the generality of the world would hope that by the end of the COP 2020, or COP 28 rather, that we will be able to provide solutions to most of the challenges that has been affecting the world.
Well, these are the things that we hope that this COP28 that is holding in Abu Dhabi, they come to a resolute conclusion, and let's see how we can see implementations happening the world over. But this is where we're going to put a pause to our flash stories, and we'll be moving straight to our major stories this morning.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Of course, more conversations around Nigeria and about Nigeria is what we're talking about in Rise and Shine this morning. And our very first major story, we are looking at the minimum wage increase that is built for 2024. We made an introduction into that story yesterday, and we do hope that our guest, Marvel Lysian, is going to be able to join us any moment from now as we're looking at the minimum wage conversations. Yesterday, the big question was, how much is the federal government actually willing to pay? We remember that in the last 1 month, there's been conversations between the trade unions, in Nigeria, the labor unions in Nigeria, and the federal government about giving a wage award. Now, that is not an increase in salary. It was just something to buffer, for workers nationwide to be able to go through the time being. But 2024 is due year for the increment of minimum wage nationwide, and the big question is, how much is Nigeria actually willing to pay? But we see, as of yesterday, the federal government said a new minimum wage regime would come into effect April 1st 2024, I beg your pardon. Now, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, disclosed this in an interview yesterday. Now, he said the current minimum wage stands at 30,000 naira, and it will expire at the end of March 2024. Now, of course, we are seeing that the analysis given looks into running that particular budget between 2024-2026 fiscal framework budget. And then, of course, we see that the federal government would spend about 24.66 trillion naira on salaries in 2024, 2025, and 2026. So the window for the next minimum wage that is going to be open, the budgetary allocation for it, which is at 24.66 trillion naira, will span for the next 3 years from 2024. Now, of course, we've seen that removing fuel subsidy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has really, affected a lot of things, and the federal government did agree to pay 35,000 naira to each of its workers to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal. So maybe that came to a 5,000 naira topping upon the minimum wage. And then one would really wonder how much did 5,000 do. But the big question remains, as we move to increase the salary and we have an allocation budget of 24.66 trillion naira, how much of this will, now be interpreted to one person's minimum wage?
Well, the conversations about minimum wage is not just about the federal government's announcement. It's not just about letting Nigerians know that it's going to kickstart by 2024. It's about how much is going to be the increment across the different, cadres of the civil service. That is the conversation. The NLC TUC has been on the forefront of championing this cause, of course, for the relevant, unions in Nigeria and all the workers in Nigeria across boards. We do hope, as it has been announced, that while the federal government is contemplating and working on, the new minimum wage, they take into consideration the reality of things on grounds. And of course, for the first time, they should be able to look past the personal sentiments and the personal interests of politicians and actually look at how to, ensure that every Nigerian worker has enough to take care of his or herself, and of course also be able to go about doing other things and other responsibilities, that pertains to them. Because if we do not, definitely it's going to be a serious conversation, it's going to be a serious problem. And one of such would be that we might be having a different spate of strike. So beyond the announcement made by the federal government, the people expect that, concrete negotiations has been done and the terms have been agreed upon between, the federal government, the NLC, and the TUC, and of course other unions of in Nigeria that represents the different interests of the workers.
Well, this is the expectation. We don't know if we have a guest on standby, but this is a conversation we are waiting to have this morning. But let's just look at our next story. And when Marvelison joins us, who is an organization development expert, he'll be able to break this particular thing down better for us. But then let's move on to the very next story. The Japa syndrome, how it's affecting the health sector, and the fact that the federal government is urging universities to produce more doctors. The issue here, is it the production of more doctors year on year that is going to, bring solution to this particular issue, Francis? I'm sure that in the last 2 years that we have really experienced an upsurge with the Japa syndrome. We have also graduated medical students out of our universities in Nigeria. And when you say once we graduate students, it's not like they can immediately do everything in the sector. There is housemanship for 1 year. There is, have to grow through all of that to be able to get patients actually committed to your hands. Is churning out more doctors from Nigerian universities actually a major solution to the Japa syndrome that we are facing? Or yesterday we talked about the budgetary allocation to the health sector. And as the federal government had promised a 10% investment into the health sector, we did not see that reflect in that particular budget. Now the health sector is decrying of infrastructural decay. They're looking at welfare. I think the least of the solution here is, churning out graduates from universities.
Well, it's unfortunate. It definitely seems like the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration is making another flop, another policy direction that is going to fail. It's already failing on arrival. Because when you're talking about and directing university to increase the admission quota for medical students, are we saying we should drop the standard of admission for medical students who are seeking to study, or students who are seeking to study medicine or medicine related fields or courses? If that is the case, then what would be the impact on the excellence or the delivery of these students when they eventually graduate? And like you rightly posited, after the whole study of graduating as a medical doctor or medical practitioner, for the medical doctors, for starters, you have the 1 year mandatory housemanship. From the 1 year mandatory housemanship, you now go to serve. And that's 2 years already. Now, by the time you're done serving, that is when you're qualified according to the setup to now be employed. Now, let's not forget also, while the federal government is complaining that we don't have enough manpower, I can bet you there are still some doctors in these countries that are not employed. There are still doctors in this country, certified, qualified doctors that are not employed.
But Francis, you know that, now employees pushing up the conversation of lack of skills on the part of employees or people seeking employment. There's this thing of really pushing up that, oh, we have graduates that are not employable. We have people who lack skills. Let's go to the professional sector. If we say that we have professionals, doctors that were trained for 7 years in our universities and come out and you say that they lack the skill to be employed by the health sector, where are they supposed to garner their skills from? If they're not given, like this housemanship opportunities and the rest to be able to practice and learn their skills. Because this is a professional sector. It's different from you saying that there are, unprofessional courses or unprofessional fields where people, just cut and join here and there. But these are professional sectors. They take time in their pre-trainings. So how will it be? Because this has also been enumerated as part of the problems of the health sector.
Well, it's definitely a very big question. But of course, one of the conversations has always been that, Nigerian students are not, they don't have the necessary skill set. But who is to blame? Is it the Nigerian student or the federal government or the government of the day that has refused to overhaul the entire education system, that is consistently making Nigerian students quote from books that are outdated, like, engaging students from things that are obsolete? As far as we are concerned, as far as the Nigerian educational system is concerned, if we want to get skill sets that are relevant to the reigning, society, that are relevant to the jobs that are available, then we need to overhaul the educational system. We need to look into our curriculum. We need to change the narrative when it comes to, the overdependence on certificates and paper qualifications when people have absolutely nothing to show for it. So it goes back to the system. It goes back to the government. And if we are going to solve that situation, it definitely would need a political will. It will need determination. It would need commitment. It would need investment on the part of the government. And then we'll also have to fight some of the, institutional decay in the educational sector. Until we do that, we're still going to have the problem. And when you talk about, medical practitioners, the doctors and all of those, for those who are still not, employed, you find out that even for housemanship, people graduate and it takes them years to find a hospital to do housemanship. And if you can't find a hospital to do housemanship and even commence the process of learning from, your seniors in the field, how then are you going to garner the relevant, skill set that, that is necessary for the changes, or that is necessary for the doctor himself to begin to advance? And let's not also forget that when we are talking about the lack of personnel, we're also talking about specific, professionals in the different subsectors of medicine. So it is not just about graduating the medical students. It's not about having them do housemanship. It's not about having them save and then getting them employed. Even if we were to employ all the doctors that we have in this country, which of course is not happening so far, we will still be lacking in some areas of those professionals because it will take time. And we know that as far as the medicine profession is concerned, that's one field that you literally will find people writing exams from different upgrades every now and then. So it would also boil down to the question of welfare.
Yeah.
How much are these people earning? How much is the different professional examinations that they have to take year in, year out to get to the point where we have experts in these different fields? And then the experts that we have, how much commitment is the federal government dedicated to ensuring that these ones that we have, are given the welfare, they're given the enabling environment to stay and continue to work? Remember just recently, Dr. Umorin in Akwa Ibom State was able to do an operation that, hasn't ever been done. And he was successful. Now, that kind of procedure, that doctor, he's not given the commendation, he's not given the, all that he requires.
The environment to be able to soar.
To even do more. Now, if he's able to achieve that within the limited, crude environment that he finds himself, imagine what such a person could do if he decides today to travel outside the shores of Nigeria.
Exactly.
Then we will say, oh, we are having doctors, we are having professionals leaving the country. But when they are in the country, when they are patriotic, when they are giving their best foot, they're putting their best foot to serve the country, we are not seeing that. And we are not also contributing to making that work out for us. So it's a major disappointment. So it goes down to the federal government. If they want to change the narrative, then we must see commitment in terms of investment. We must see commitment in terms of ensuring that there is infrastructural advancement in the sector.
especially on the part of the federal government towards these people. And infrastructure is a big question and is a big need at this time. But let's see how, like Francis had initially posited, let the federal government not move policies, and let's not go for the lesser solution. Let's need the real issues, at the board, and this will hopefully help us. But let's move on now to the fact that the federal government is seeking to reduce the budget deficit by nearly half. The budget stands at 27 plus trillion naira at this time, as was presented by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the National Assembly, and they're looking at certain breakdown that we have to do, and we see that quite a lump sum out of the budget is going to be used to offset debt, and so we are looking for a way to block all of these kinds of leakages, and they intend to reduce the budget deficit by nearly half. Now, Francis, let's look into what exactly the federal government is willing to do to break down these leakages into nearly half.
Well, of course, it's a beautiful thing that the federal government is saying this at the beginning of the budget, but Nigerians will still tell you we have concerns, we have fears. Will the federal government be able to implement? Now we see that Wale Edun is saying that the federal government plans to, by every means, through accounting skills, financing skills and strategies, block every form of leakages when it comes to the government expenses, when it comes to the utilization of funds, when it comes to ministries, padding budget and all of those. But, if we have to circle back on the conversation, especially since the Muhammadu Buhari's administration and some of the probes that have kickstarted by this present National Assembly, you would ask the question, budget padding, of the different ministries so far that the federal government, through the investigation of the National Assembly, have discovered, XYZ ministry was, padding budget to the tune of billions. What has been done to the respective heads of those ministries and agencies of government who were padding the budget? How many people have we seen being probed for those different actions that came as a result of budget padding? And of course, if we are going to block leakages, we're also going to talk about the commitment. How committed is the federal government of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to fight corruption? Because if you intend to block leakages and then you're not also prepared to take the necessary steps and ensure that people who are standing in the way of making sure that you do not succeed in the move are able to pay the supreme price or are made to face the full wrath of the law, we cannot stop leakages in this country. We cannot stop people pilfering from the public treasures. We cannot stop people trying to outsmart the government. The mentality of it's the national, moi. So as long as I'm, also in this position of power, I should be able to take my share. I should be able to have my quota kept aside for me and my family and mine. So if we are going to, be able to, if the federal government really determined to, change the narrative, then we must, as a matter of urgency, commit to lifestyle changes, commit to actually prosecuting, people who have been caught, people who have been indicted, people who have, for whatever reason, manipulated the expenses of the federal government or done something that is not necessarily or should not have been done. That is the only way that we are going to be able to change the narrative. That's the only way that we are going to be able to block those leakages. But if we do not get to see people, going in for the different crimes that they have committed, definitely it is still going to be business as usual. And by the end of the 2024 budget, trust me, the federal government will be coming to tell us how much have been lost and unaccounted for, and we'll be seeing different spates of probes happening without anybody being prosecuted.
Well, Nigeria's budget deficit stands currently at 6.11% of the gross domestic product, GDP of the nation. And we see that there is a new comprehensive revenue generation and management strategy, which is expected to cut the budget deficit to about 3.88% from the 6.11% where it stands. Now, we also see that the new strategy is a major anchor of the 27.5 trillion naira budget proposal, which debate started yesterday. Of course, we have seen the committee start debate and speaking to heads of agencies to defend the allocation that has been put to their different sectors. Now, of course, we see that President Bola Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, had presented the first full budget of his administration. The target is to close the deficit gap to within the threshold of 3% set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. Now, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 has given a benchmark within which the country's deficits, budget deficits should stand. But so far, we have overshot by another extra 3% plus. And Wale Edun, who is in charge of, the economy and finance, coordinating Minister of Economy and the Minister of Finance, is saying that they're putting all hands on deck to make sure that these leakages are actually blocked. Let's see how this will affect the implementation of the 2024 budget, which is, the most important thing. Now that the federal government has decided that they don't want budgets to spill over into the next year. Now, if the whole 27.5 trillion naira is approved for the federal government, that is what they'll be working with in the whole of 2024. But let's see how the breakdown is going to be done and how the implementation is going to be done. But let's move to a very last story this morning. The political crisis in Edo State. It looks like there's some kind of fresh air for the deputy at this time. It's like he's been given way to be able to run for the governorship. At least it is Obaseki, his principal, that is saying he can go ahead and actually contest for the elections.
Well, whether Obaseki said it or he didn't say it,
definitely,
it's the constitutional right of Shaibu to
exactly
contest for election. He has that, constitutional provisions made for him. So it's a good thing. Maybe, Obaseki has come to terms with the reality on grounds and know that it's not about him and he cannot stop, Shaibu from, contesting the elections. But we do hope that this pans out well in the interest of the people. But this is where we'll put a pause on our conversation and we'll head out to Delhi Spotlight. Well, on Daily Spotlight, we're starting with the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Of course, the kicker there says how to get 2024 budget right. Economists. The story is on page 4 on the front page of Daily Trust. We see also on the front page of Daily Trust, Nigerian nurse in UK sacked, deported over prayer for dying patient. Okay, that's an interesting twist. That story is on page 6. We see villagers flee as soldiers leave Kaduna community. Stories on page 3. Still on the front page of the Daily Trust, Navy arrests 2 ships crew for illegal fishing. 1,001 students on Kano State Government's foreign scholarship departing to their respective destinations. Of course, that story is still on page 27 on the front page of Daily Trust. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Moving away from Daily Trust, our very next paper is the Nigerian Tribune. Big story there, 80% surge in food importation alarming, says federal government. We see that 8.5 million Nigerians threatened with insufficient food consumption. We also see here food inflation stood at 31.52% in October, says Nigeria has highest rates of stunted children globally. Explains what is being done to reverse that. Of course, page 8 is where you can find details of all of that story. We also see here Yedetiwe presides over Ondo Exco meeting. All political issues resolved, says government. Assembly withdraws case against deputy governor, page 3. It means that they have made progress in Ondo State. We also see here reps NSE argue over concrete technology for road construction. About time, page 2. We also have here Shaibu free to contest, but PDP members will decide a Do-Guba candidate, says Obaseki. Well, page 30 is where you can find details. 2024 budget, reps call for fiscal responsibility, public service reform. First Bank Group appoints Adenowo, MDC of First Bank UK, page 7. We also see here that 135 billion naira gas intervention project. Senators kick at CBN, Petroleum Ministry trade blame. Very last story here says Makinde presents new Assayin staff of office December 14, page 30. That's all we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
And next up this morning is the front page of Daily Times, and the kicker there says number of mad persons, orders in suicide mood rising in Lagos. Of course, the story is on page 4. That's according to Rewain this morning. We see still on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper how Sokoto is tackling insecurity using community guards. Story is on page 5. Makinde to present staff of office to Seun Assayin, 14 December. Page 5 has the story. Federal Chief Medical Directors in 750 billion naira COVID-19 funds riddle. The story is on page 5 on the front page of Daily Times. FCTA buzzed illegal oil refining warehouse in Abuja. Interesting twist of event there. Those are the major stories we find on the front page of Daily Times this morning.
Moving on from Daily Times, our very next paper is The Nation newspaper this morning. Big story, how federal government will tackle budget 2024 deficit by Wale Edun. That's something we have just looked at this morning, of course. Measures will crush shortfall from 6.11% to 3.88% of GDP. Senate, House begin debate on 27.6 trillion estimate. Budget brilliant, says Senator Jimo Ibrahim. Ayedetiwa on the House close ranks. Exco adopts Abuja peace terms. House withdraws suit against Deputy Governor. Workers to get 35,000 naira. Nigeria UK strengthens ties. Tinubu King Charles III meet. We also have here UK willing to partner Nigeria on lithium value chain, says Alake. Page 3 is where you can find details of that story. Medical Dental Council, we will help to address doctors' mass exit. Page 3. Lagos Abuja demolition, Ohaneze kicks, we follow rule of law. Page 1. A lot is actually going on in the FCT and now. We also see here Edo PDP governorship primary process in shaky start. Page 5. Last story that we have on the front page of The Nation. FEMA needs 300 billion naira annually to fix federal roads. Abiodun presents 703 billion naira budget for 2024 estimates. Page 2.
Well, our next up this morning will be the front page of the Punch newspaper. The kicker there says new wage begins April. Federal government votes 24 trillion naira for salaries. The story is on page 2. Labour, federal government begins talks. Current wage regime expires March ending, says Minister. Federal government laments fiscal deficit. Reps condemn high MDA salaries, demand ICPC probe. Of course, the story is on page 2. Still on the front page of Punch. CBN funds, Senate threatens to order gas companies probe. The story is on page 7. Shaibu free to contest Edo governorship, says Obaseki, page 26. Of course, page 7 has federal government pays 585 million naira fines, begin nationwide prisoners release. Still on page 7. COP28, Tinubu meets King Charles. Nigeria orders $261 billion fund. The story is on page 10 on the front page of Punch newspaper. Of course, Jackpot federal government urges varsities to produce more doctors. Page 7 has a story. We've talked about that this morning. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Punch this morning. Of course, that takes us to the end of Delhi Spotlight. We'll take a pause here and we'll be heading out to the news brief decks where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us. To stay with us.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong. The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
for brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news from the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to remove 40 lapses in counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. My name is Mary Joseph. Our first report this morning is that the federal government has said that a new minimum wage administration would come into effect on April 1st, 2024. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, who disclosed this in an interview in Abuja, said the current 30,000 naira minimum wage would expire at the end of March 2024. Recall that following the removal of the fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu on May 29, 2023, the federal government had agreed to pay 35,000 naira to each of its workers to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal. We head straight now to the Red Chambers, where the Senate has commenced debate on the 2024 budget, a day after President Bola Tinubu presented the budget of 27.5 trillion naira to a joint session of the National Assembly. Shortly after the joint session, the proposed budget passed its first reading at the Senate and House of Representatives. Leading the debate on the general principles of the 2024 appropriation bill during the plenary yesterday, the Senate's leader, Okpeyemi Bamidele, announced that the bill is deemed to have been read for the first time by the presentation before the joint session of the National Assembly, hence the commencement of the general debate. To health, as the world marks this year's World AIDS Day, today with the theme, Let Community Lead, advocates have been urged to honor all who have lost their lives to AIDS-related illnesses, support those who carry on the fight, and unite people globally in battling HIV and AIDS, and reinforce the need to prioritize community efforts and action from now on. Reports say while the World AIDS Day has commenced with significant progress over the past decades, the global HIV and AIDS response faces serious threats, including insufficient funding, dangerously high rates of 1.3 million HIV and AIDS transmissions annually, an estimated of 630,000 deaths each year, and responses not being prioritized highly enough, particularly in low-income countries. Observed annually on December 1st, World AIDS Day gives HIV and AIDS advocates an opportunity to bring awareness to the global response fight the harmful stigma and discrimination that hinder people living with HIV from seeking testing and treatment services, and urge governments worldwide to ensure the resources and political will are available to fight HIV. On the foreign scene, Israel says 6 more hostages have returned to its territory after being released from Gaza under an extended temporary ceasefire which entered its 7th day yesterday. Qatar, key mediator in the deal, says 2 Russian-Israeli nationals released on Wednesday were also counted in yesterday's tally, meaning the day's overall total of 10 has been reached. We end now with sports, where Nigeria began their quest for a place in the next year's Women's World Cup of Nations WAFCON with a 5-0 thumping of Cape Verde at the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja. Uchenna Kanu and Esther Okoronkwo scored the brace each, while Monday Gifts got a goal as the Super Falcons recorded an emphatic win over the Minnows. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. My name is Mary Joseph. Let's get back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Oyai on standby to have a wonderful morning.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to remove 40 lapses in counting.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on the television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more enquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Glad to welcome you back. Of course, it's still Rise and Shine coming to you live on Spectrum Television, and we're beaming live from the very beautiful city of Akwa Ibom State. In case you've missed out on all of our conversations, well, you can just find it out for yourself, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. But of course, gender-based violence has been a prevalent issue in Nigeria and the world over. And you would recall that we're still on the 16 days awareness campaign to raise awareness and talk about some of the issues that has led to the increased number of gender-based violence as it affects the girl child. We are not saying that the male child is not also suffering, but of course our focus is on the girl child today. We have representative of an amazing NGO who will be joining us to navigate the roles of community stakeholders in curbing the menace of gender-based violence. Of course, we have the special honor of welcoming on set Dr. Gabriel Eyo, who is a clinical care associate. Good morning, welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Also joining us live is Ugochi Onyinye, communication assistant, and both Ugochi and of course Dr. Eyo are from the Excellence Community Education Welfare Scheme, ACUS. I hope I got that correct.
Yes, very well.
All right, good morning, welcome.
Thank you, good morning.
Okay, so gender-based violence, I mean, literally everybody across the world knows what gender-based violence is, but I'd like for us to come down to the focus of the conversation. Oftentimes, when we talk about gender-based violence, there are a lot of reasons why it is prevalent in the society. And I'd like to start with you as a woman, since we're focusing on the women today. First question to you this morning. Let's talk about your advocacy and what your organization does generally as far as issues of gender-based violence is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm not going to be speaking just from the woman perspective because it's gender. Yeah. Gender is both male and female. We're not biased. Gender cuts across every one of us. As for us as an organization, ECUS, which is, as you've rightly said, Excellence Community Education Welfare Scheme, we are built on a tripod of education, health, and economic strengthening. So these are the three tripods ECUS is built on. And for us, we are the #1 implementing partners for HIV and AIDS in Nigeria, in Akwa Ibom State, of course. We have presence in 17 states across Nigeria. And gender-based violence is an integral part of our programming because of our clients. Our clients have people who go through a lot of gender-based violence, and we advocate for we say no to gender-based violence. And because of that, we are here. And with the 16 days activism, we are fighting, we are saying no to gender-based violence because it's a crime. So for us as AQs, we've made it a point of duty to join our voices with that of the world and that of Nigerians out there to call it out and say no to gender-based violence. And that's why we're here today.
So when we say gender-based violence, I know Francis was saying everybody knows what gender-based violence is. What exactly is violence? Because I was watching a clip yesterday where a certain professor was speaking to a preacher on the street and held his cord. Next thing, they arrested her. She has what? Assaulted the street preacher. So, Dr. Ayo, I'd like for you to break down what violence is for us. And oftentimes, when we talk violence, people first of all think of the physical assault and all of those things. But I know that violence can be broken down. So let's hear it.
Okay, thank you very much. So gender-based violence is just simply defined as harmful practices or actions directed at an individual or a group of people based on their gender. Like you said, it could be that male or female. And then the various types of gender-based violence are one, physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, even economic and financial violence are equally part of gender-based violence. And it's actually a violation of our human rights. So yeah, these are the various forms of gender-based violence: physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, and even economic.
Let's talk economic and financial violence.
Okay.
In the face in the face of the current realities, the economy of Nigeria since May 29, it's been something else. Would you say that the federal government is assaulting us? Is the federal government, abusing us, violating us in any way? So let's break down what that entails.
We are being harassed financially and economically.
Okay.
What do you want to say?
No, I was actually expecting like you will break it down. Yes, because when someone is experiencing a financial or economic abuse, how do they know? Because sometimes in relationships, one person might be abusing you financially and you may not realize that that's a financial abuse, where you have one too many people plugged into your financial source without trying to give back. So I know you know the professional end. Forget what Nigeria is making you laugh about, but yeah, break down that financial violence a little bit, because it has to be holistic.
Okay, financial abuse, like you've actually put a very nice scenario there. Leeching on someone's financial output or inputs. It mostly, I think I can relate to it as the firstborn, mostly firstborns. You have a lot of responsibilities, you're the one doing this, you're the one doing that, and no one actually offers support. It's actually a form of violence, and it will actually, tend to weigh down on the person and can go as far as affecting the psychic of the person, both emotionally, psychologically, and otherwise. So, like Fakri put it, one form of gender-based violence can translate into the other forms as well. So you can see someone coming down with the economic violence, financial based violence, and it actually affects him psychologically, emotionally, and otherwise. Equally, physical violence and sexual violence, someone can actually be assaulted sexually, and in the process of being assaulted sexually, assaulted physically as well. And even the points can be assaulted emotionally and psychologically, because someone being sexually traumatized can affect the psychic, emotions, and equally the physical appearance of the person as well. So most of these forms of GBV, they actually intertwined.
Yes.
Okay. Now let me come to you, Ogochi, and I'm going to be specific, relationship-wise. I recall having conversations with some guardians and counseling experts. We're talking about why women, in particular, would stay in relationships where they are mentally drained, they're emotionally drained, they're physically being abused. And one of the key issues that came up was, financial dependence. And then the question comes, why do women stay in abusive relationships just because of financial dependence?
Okay, I don't think it's just the financial dependence, because if a woman is economically empowered, if she knows her self-worth and knows that she can actually fend for herself and get those finances, she'll probably leave the relationship. Just that science has tended to prove that women are emotional. So you see that these women are in a relationship, and just because they can't speak out, they can't actually tell someone what they are going through, or they are scared of the ripple effect if they even voice out. That's why they tend to stay. A woman is naturally built to fend, to nurture, to take care. So that means she can actually pull out and take care of herself if motivated to. But they remain in that toxic relationship because they feel nobody will actually believe what they're going through. That is the number one issues we're having, because as we've seen the statistics, women are mostly affected by gender-based violence, and that is why this year's team is saying unite, invest to prevent violence against women and girls. These are the issues. Women are not speaking out. Women are keeping quiet. You're going through a lot. You can't tell anybody because, one, you're emotionally attached to the man who is abusing you, and you actually think there's a remedy. There's this God factor, and you're like, oh, somehow he's going to be saved. Maybe he's going to change.
Do people change by mere prayers or by a commitment to action?
Because you're emotionally attached to someone, you just want to have some kind of faith, saving grace. Will this man just see me for who I am? Is this man actually going to one day appreciate what I bring to the table? Is this man actually going to know that I actually care about him? You're just having some leap of faith. But we're here saying that it's not like we don't trust in your belief. We're saying safety first. Can you speak out? Can you be heard? Can you just say something? And then people are there to help you. That's what we're trying to say. So toxic relationship, it's what we see daily basis. Like for us in the clinic, we get to see people who come in and report this and everything, and some won't even report. You see a woman come in today, she's having headache, tomorrow she's having fever or sore throat. You probably be treating symptoms, but you will not know that she's actually going through that violence, because these are, as he said, is intertwined. So it's not actually the headache or the sore throat or the fever. It's something else.
Offshoot of something deeper.
Which is the violence she's going through, whether be it physical or be it, you see, maybe a cut, and the person will tell you it's a kitchen cut. But the person is going through something deeper, and they won't speak because of fear.
So why aren't women speaking up? Apart from the fear, conversations about stigmatization or being labeled as somebody who is being abused also has been identified as a major problem. So what is your agency doing? What are the parts of the awareness campaign to ensure that women get to understand that it's okay to speak up? It's okay to feel all of the emotions, and then you're also going to face the likelihood of stigmatization. But this should not be a barrier to you speaking up and seeking help.
Yes, that is why we've come to talk about community involvement, stakeholders involvement. People need to understand that we are a community. I'm a stakeholder, you're a stakeholder, an individual is a stakeholder. As an organization, this is part of our advocacy campaign to create awareness, because we've understood that information is power. Maybe they don't know there are channels they can actually speak up. We're here saying, speak up, we are here, AQS is here for you. We're also here to say, we all come from a family. People don't speak up because, one, the community, what are they going to say about me? How are people going to judge me? Are they going to actually see me for who I am? That is why we're saying the role of the community is very important in eliminating gender-based violence. And community might be a broad word. We are narrowing down to say that the community involves the family, the church, even the small business person, even the keke man outside there, the individual, you out there, you're a community person. So if you see someone preying on someone, or if you see something, say something. Don't keep quiet. You can even on your own go for an advocacy visit, even to your community leaders. If the people in the community take it upon themselves to understand that gender-based violence is a crime, is a crime, you will get worried in your spirit and say, is this, even if you see small atom of gender-based violence, which is both on the female child or the male child, you should say something. We are saying that the community people, which I have explained that is all of us, should take responsibility for this maniac we're talking about. It's not a one-man thing. You might not be going through gender-based violence today, but your sister might be in future. So if you keep your mouth shut today, it might affect someone close to you. So we're saying that people should get involved, talk about gender violence, advocate for it, and if you see something, say something.
Close mouth is a closed heaven.
Really serious conversation that we're having this morning. But we're just going to take a really quick short break, and when we return, we'll still bring you the concluding part of this conversation on gender-based violence. So stay with us.
Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my Lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program.
Issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Thanks for still being there. Of course, it's still Rise and Shine, the Friday edition. And we've been talking gender-based violence this morning. When we talk gender-based violence, it's about the woman, it's about the man, it's about the boy child, it's about the girl child, and how connected are we as a community to make sure that we are speaking up in terms of anything that is happening against people in the environment. We still have with us on set this morning Dr. Ugochi Onyinye. We also have Dr. Gideon Ayo, Dr. Onyinye Ugochi. I saw her squeezing her face. Gabriel Ayo. Yeah, so we also have, they are members, they are from the EQ's I'll call it a foundation.
NGO, please.
NGO, yeah. Addressing gender-based violence issues in Akwa Ibom State and in 17 other states. So I wanted also to touch a little bit on the clinical aspect of addressing gender-based violence. When these people come to the facilities, what kind of procedures are available to them? Because we must know how to take them out of the situations clinically. Are there clinical solutions for gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you very much. Depending on the kind of violence meted out to an individual who presents to the hospital, either it's physical, sexual, emotional, or otherwise. If it's physical, we offer clinical services based on the presenting complaint. And then apart from the clinical services we offer, for example, I work in the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital. Any victim of gender-based violence who presents to the hospital, after offering the medical services, we link them to legal aid. We actually ask, do you want to? Because yes, some of these victims, they are more open to sharing their experiences with a physician because they know the person is offering care, holistic care to the person. So some information they will not likely share with others. In the consulting room, they actually open up and share it. So at that particular point in time, after offering the medical services, we offer legal aid. Do you understand? So like EQUIS, we actually partner with other NGOs and governmental organizations. We partner with the MBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, the Nigerian Medical Association, even the Medical Women Association of Nigeria, and FERE, the brainchild of the Excellency, the wife of the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Ms. Martha Udom Emmanuel. So we actually, link up and buttress this intersectoral collaboration to actually offer holistic care to victims of gender-based violence.
So that makes it sound like the clinical aspect is one of the strongest ways we can nib it in the bud. Yes. If it is easy for a violated person to talk to their clinician, it means the legal aspect needs to really sum up. We know that yesterday the Attorney General of the Federation was saying they're going to put in principles on ground to address gender-based violence in schools. It is on the rise, where we see a lot of people violated in schools, from primary schools upwards into the university. So talking about EQUIS and your community approach to addressing these issues, what programs do you have for addressing gender-based violence in schools, especially educating maybe the young ones to know and be self-aware when something is an abuse?
Okay, thank you very much. So for us as EQUIS, we are an indigenous non-governmental organization, and we have programs in place. We have the AYP hub, what we call the Adolescent and Young People Hub, set up in most of the states we are present in. And what we do in this hub is that the young people, the adolescent, because it's not just about age. We see molestation, we see rape and all that. So for the young people, we bring them out from the society, from the communities, and we empower them with vocational skills, because when women are empowered, they are less vulnerable. It's been proven they are less vulnerable to, and they're more aware because they are financially capable to at least take care of themselves. Apart from that, in the AYP hub, we do training. There's this no means no training. So because no is a complete sentence, and when a girl child or a male child says no, it has to be respected. So during the no means training, we teach them how to fight, where not to touch, where it's sensitive, your body parts that are sensitive to you, how to protect yourself even if you are about to be gang raped or something, how to fight. So this No Means No is an international program which EQUIS also through its system provides to the Adolescent and Young People Hub. As well as we have helplines, we also have people in the systems. So during our package of care, during implementing processes, if we discover that there are people who have been sexually abused or emotionally abused or physically abused, we link you up, as Dr. Ayuas, we link you up to our package of care. If it's not directly provided by EQUIS, we have collaborations and partnership with other implementing partners, as well as funding from the United States government as well. So we make sure that with everything within our capacity to make sure that victims of gender-based violence are taken care of. And we also talk about consent. We tell people that you must seek consent. Consent, when someone says no, it actually means no. Consent is very important. And for community people, capacity building, as I mentioned, vocational skills, empower the girl child, give them leadership positions, to lead. When a woman is empowered,
she can save the community. Very strong conversations we've been having this morning, of course, speaking with our guests on gender-based violence. It's been 16 days of activism to see how we can make sure that the girl child, the boy child, the male and the female, we even talk about the violence happening in the workspace. Everyone needs to be protected from this. We must say a very big thank you to our guests for coming on the show this morning. They've shared a great wealth of knowledge that we absolutely appreciate. Of course, we've had Dr. Gabriel Oyor, who is a clinical care associate with ECUS, and we also have Ugochi Onyinye, who is a communication assistant with ECUS. A wealth of knowledge you'd want to come back on, so follow us on YouTube and on our website at spectrumtvlive.ng to get a hang on everything that they have said. Let's see how, as a community, we can help everyone who might be suffering gender-based violence. At this point, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be having a short interview just talking about AIDS this morning. Stay with us.
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or product visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Kakaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back, and thanks for still being there. Of course, it's still Rise and Shine, and today is the International World's Health HIV and AIDS Day, I beg your pardon. And of course, the conversation about HIV and AIDS has transcended over the years. Technology has moved. A way to combat the disease has also been innovated. But it looks like in recent years, the numbers have been skyrocketing in Africa, and it looks like there's still a prevalence of the disease, although we seem to have made progress over the years. We have a guest here on set who will be talking about the import of today's celebration globally. We have Dr. Mary Enyeni, I hope I got your name right, I apologize, clinical service specialist with ECUS. Good morning, man. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we also have with us Dr. Balagana, state director at ECUS. Thank you for being here. So we have such a short time. It literally might take just one question each. But today is the World, International Day for AIDS. Like I said, we have made progress, but we seem to have plateaued and we're going back down. What's really happening with HIV/AIDS? Let me start with you, state director.
Yeah, thank you so much. A lot has happened and a lot is happening. Nigeria has made so much progress with all the work that happened with HIV. In 2018, there was a nice study that showed the prevalence where we stand with HIV, and that from that study we saw that Akwa Ibom in particular had the prevalence of 5.5, which was the highest in the country. Since then, a lot has been done in terms of the surge, going out into the communities to identify cases, and right now I would say that it would be good for us to look towards another survey that will actually give us a true picture. But a lot of people have been placed on treatment. There's a lot of awareness, and a lot of work has been done, with addressing the pandemic. And as you will see, the global theme for this year is let communities lead, and for Nigeria that theme has been domesticated to community leadership to ending AIDS by 2030, and so we're hopeful that we can get to that point.
Any 8 by 2030, does that mean that we're going to be having like absolutely no persons living with 8, or the transmission of 8 is going to stop? Because that's something we must know when we have that kind of targets. What exactly are we looking at? And then from there, you can break us into the conversation of having the community's hands on deck with handling 8.
All right, thank you very much. So when they said let's end 8 by 2030, doesn't mean that 8 will just go. What it means that there will be no recent infection, meaning that like now we're identifying new cases, meaning that what we'll just have will be the clients that are already on treatment. In terms of like mother to child transmission, that would have stopped. It just ends with the mother. So no new infections by 2030. So that's the end when you say let's end 8 by 2030. Then you're looking at let communities lead, because you know that when the communities take ownership of this, to drive the process is easier. It makes it more, they own the disease and they are able to preach the message to the communities. Imagine now, if in a community there's an awareness, and the community themselves, the community leaders, use their space to say, okay, come, let's do this as an outreach point to do testing. And there's no form of discrimination or stigma. It makes everybody open to assess HIV prevention and care in that community, because the community leadership has already taken that ownership. So that's the idea. Let communities lead, because by 2030 the international donors would have withdrawn their funds from us, and it's now left for us to take over. So we need to start owning this by ourselves. So that's why we're saying let communities lead, because when we see communities take ownership of something, it's easy to sustain the response.
The conversation of having donors and investors withdrawing their investments and the aid that they have been given, the likes of USAID and a lot of those, when they withdraw their investments in terms of funds, how is it going to be, the whole program, how is it going to be sustained? Is the federal government going to be taking on the treatment? Because right now we know that the treatment for AIDS is free, across the nations, of the world. So how is it going to be? How is Nigeria positioning to be able to take care of that? 2030 is a couple years, or do we, I know that some of these projects, do we start looking for new variants on how to expand, and sustain the projects? Director, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. The PEPFAR fund, one of the major funds for HIV programming, started sometime in 2003. And if you look at the trend over the years, there's been dwindling funding over the years. And we also have funding from Global Fund, we have funding from private individuals. The discussion for sustainability has long begun, and it's still ongoing, to be able to get the country, the government of Nigeria, their buy-in to ensure that they're beginning to take up responsibilities, to also the discussions around public-private partnership, having individuals, Nigerians who are actually supporting the cause also. So it's not something that would happen overnight, but discussions have started. We're seeing a lot of traction. We're seeing state governments bringing funds to get test kits. We're seeing state governments, so it started, the discussions have started, and I believe that if we continue in the trajectory, there's hope that even when there's withdrawal from donor agency, Nigeria will be able to, stand the test.
Stand on its own. Okay, we'll take one last question, and that'll be all we can take for this morning. Still, let's baseline on community. What would you say is the response level with regards to community in Akwa Ibom State, leveraging on the traditional rulers and all of those community level activities? How would you say your penetration into the communities is doing currently? Because if we take advantage of that, we will be able to meet that 2030 target.
All right, so as a state now, right, we're working in 31 LGs. So far, as an agency, we have actually mandated our teams at different LGs to actually work with the community stakeholders, the gatekeepers in the community. So the response so far has actually been good. We're actually getting there, but we are not there yet. But we want them to actually take ownership. So in every LGs we have, the LGA manager actually meets with the community gatekeepers. So that has actually made foster relationship between us and the communities. So we're even going as far as, okay, let the primary health centers we're working with, let it be the government staff there that are actually taking up those responsibilities, and we are on the backstage. So they do the activities and we follow them behind. So whatever communities we're entering, we don't just enter by ourselves. We go through the facility, through the community gatekeepers, the paramount rulers. So if you look at the World AIDS activities from Sunday up to now, you're seeing all the pictures coming out. We are going through the communities. Whatever we do, we take the communities along. So the response is good, but it can be better.
Okay, community people living with AIDS, how is their response? You know, apart from penetrating, do you have them come out and take advantage of the, you know, aid made available for the condition?
Yes, they actually come out.
So the response is good?
Yes.
All right, we've been talking HIV/AIDS today. Of course, today is the International Day marking and observing conversations and pushing activism around HIV/AIDS in the globe, and we have been taking our front and our side of the story on Spectrum Television with members of ECUs. Of course, we've had the state director for ECUs in the person of Dr. Balagana with us on set. We've also had Dr. Mary. I'd like for you to help me with your surname. I will still not get it right now. But of course, she's been here, clinical service specialist with ECUs. Great conversation. It seems like we're making good progress with HIV and AIDS, and we do hope that with all that we do, we'll have more people living properly and well by 2030. We hope that this conversation is just baseline, and we hope we have also made progress with regards to people living with stigmatization. I hope that has dropped, Director, sir.
Yeah, so there's some progress. I mean, the state is, unfortunately, we couldn't get the accent of the anti-stigma bill, the last administration, but that discussions have started again, and the more we talk about it, the more people are empowered with information, knowledge. I mean, fear reduces, people are opening up, and I think we're making progress.
All right, there's an anti-stigmatization bill that will be represented to the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly. We do hope that under this administration it does receive an accent. But that's the much we can take on the Friday edition of Rise and Shine. It's been a bumper ride this morning. Thank you for doing this with us the whole week. Until we return to your screens again next week, my name remains Uyai, and you can enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your weekend. God bless you.